Humans, folks, we gotta just jump into it right quickly. I do not usually stream at the time that it currently is on a Friday morning, but this is red alert, 5 alarm fire. This is very bad stuff. This is the reason I'm streaming right now is because this is one of the worst stories I've heard this entire Trump administration. I know there's been a lot. I know these superlatives are starting to get tired because there's so much going on in this zone that is being flooded that can sometimes be confusing. But there's so much clarity here that frankly, it is irresponsible for me to not point it out immediately as I find it and try to put something together. Even though this is not my best comfort zone in making this video. Anyways, so let's start here. FBI Director Kash Patel tweeted from his official account. This post has since been deleted, but we will talk about it here. It says, and I'm reading it. Just now, the FBI arrested Judge Dugan out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin on charges of obstruction after evidence of Judge Dugan obstructing an immigration arrest operation last week. We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest. Again, continuing to quote FBI Director Kash Patel. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody ever since, but the judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public. We'll have more details to share soon. Excellent work. And then tagging FBI Milwaukee, the Milwaukee division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is Trump appointee Kash Patel, Crazy Eyes Kash Patel, as we like to call him here on around these parts. And just to parse some of this language, because this has been deleted because, you know, even the FBI might realize this is a bridge way too far for what is going on here. But to go off of the headlines, we'll start with this, headline from Axios. FBI arrests Wisconsin judge for obstruction of ICE agents, according to Kash Patel. Now, just to level set with you, there's supposed to be a separation between the federal government and the state government. Yes, the federal government is meant to, in a number of different ways, supersede state governments. But ultimately, this country tends to defer to local jurisdictions. So the city level, then the county level, and then the state level, and then you have federal district courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court, which is the Supreme Court, like the final one. Like you have superior courts, they're superior, they're a little bit better than the others, but you have supreme. That's like the end all be all that's supposed to be in these sorts of systems. And so basically what you're seeing right here is Kash Patel using the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, to arrest a state judge. And the accusation that Kash Patel is putting across, as we'll get to in a moment here in this Axios post, and then in a couple of other news moments here, this federal representative is superseding state powers by, arresting a judge and accusing them of harboring an undocumented immigrant. Now, as we're talking right now, it is currently 9:14 a.m. on the Pacific Coast, so it's like 12:14 p.m. on the East Coast. This is the 25th of April. It's a Friday. We are just learning about this information. This news just broke about an hour ago, frankly. And so we'll get more information about this. Patel added that Flores Ruiz is currently in FBI custody, at least at the time we are talking right now with the latest information that we have. This story will continue to develop, but make no mistake, Trump has done a bunch of unconstitutional things. You can talk about, don't take my word for it. Look at the courts. Don't listen to any sort of pundit about it. Look at the courts. Look at the judges' rulings. Judges that have been appointed by Republicans going all the way as far back as Ronald Reagan. Democrats going as far back as Bill Clinton. And you've got some Bush appointees. You've got some Obama appointees. You've got some Trump appointees. The Trump the first time. All right. So you can't say this is a real partisan thing. These judges who are supposed to abide by and rule by the law and the letter of the law as it exists which has its own problematic context. Check out a PowerPoint episode for more of those details. But these judges are all, in most cases, unifying and saying, Donald Trump, what you're doing is unconstitutional. And we've gotten a story about this day in and day out for the past, almost 100 days. But this is so serious because this is arresting a state judge for doing what, I think we'll get some more legal opinions about this, but we've had the existence of sanctuary cities or, states putting their own policy for how they deal with undocumented citizens, because undocumented citizens, I mean, that's a little bit of a double entendre, but undocumented people in this country, right? They pay taxes. They pay into the country. They don't really get much out of it. Oftentimes, if they are able to get a job, they are underpaid compared to a citizen. They are abused compared to a citizen. Even if you go through other avenues, such as like the H-1B visa, where you do have legal status, citizenship is a certain sort of like status, but legal status means you're allowed to be in the country legally under certain conditions. There are people who are undocumented who work in, meat packing plants and factories and, farms and things like this. And, other sort of like work that you would often be able to get away with underpaying a certain population of people for doing. Construction happens to happen as well. But again, like I'm talking about with H-1B visas, the bias is still the same, where you can dangle a person's job over the top of their heads because, like, hey, you may not have this job if you speak out against the company or do something I don't like on any given day. It's very precarious where the person holding your fate is your boss at a job. Like it's the conflicts of interest there are insane. Drive this to the federal level, and states are supposed to have certain autonomy with how they deal with people inside of their state. This is how cannabis, for example, was technically illegal federally on the federal level. And when you cross state lines, it begins to become such a little bit of a muddy water, a gray area. But if you are traveling within counties of a state that has decriminalized or legalized cannabis, for example, you don't get this sort of issue. You don't have this sort of problem when you're talking about the law, because a state is allowed to talk about or deal with the laws that happen in their state. So it becomes a gray area between what the state has jurisdiction over and what the federal level has jurisdiction over. But that's really the crux of this. And this attack is, as I'm going to show in a little bit at the very end of this video, this is how fascism begins. And so going back to this entire beginning of the clip here, or the main crux of what we're talking about here, FBI Director Kash Patel said today in a since deleted post on Twitter/X that his agency had arrested a Milwaukee judge. This is a state level judge who had allegedly tried to help an undocumented defendant avoid arrest. Hannah Dugan, Milwaukee County Circuit Judge. So I'm sorry here. County Circuit. That doesn't even make her a state. She is within the state, but she's a county level judge. Arrested on charges of obstruction of an immigration arrest operation, according to Patel's post. Brady McCarron, a spokesperson for the U.S. Marshal Service in Washington, D.C., confirmed to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that Dugan was arrested at about 8 a.m. at the county courthouse and is in federal custody. So she has been taken from her state job, where she is a state judge, and was making a, ostensibly, we don't know the details because the Trump administration has tended to lie about these things. The Trump administration has said that Abrego Garcia, for example, is everything but a son of God. And judges who are under an obligation in the courtroom to not perjure or to lie. Otherwise, judges and also prosecutors and anyone in the courtroom, you can't lie. Otherwise, if you're found to have lied, you have charges put onto you. If you're a lawyer, if you're a judge, etc. And so, just to continue here, what you're getting is the truth in the courtroom, and the spin at these press hearings, on these media appearances. That's where the spin is coming from. What they're saying. The Journal-Sentinel this week reported that the FBI was looking into whether Dugan had tried to help an undocumented immigrant to avoid arrest after that person was scheduled to appear in her courtroom. We've been seeing ICE agents show up for the court appearances for undocumented immigrants. Now, these could be civil offenses, such as, like, a traffic violation. They could be, other misdemeanors that, if you were a American citizen or someone here on a otherwise legal status, it may complicate some things for you, but these are misdemeanors, right? They're not felonies. You can be in court for any number of different reasons, but just by getting your name in the system, ICE is doing this dragnet to get people, whether they're here illegally or on a temporary protected status, or frankly legally, on any basis from, like, you were over the legal limit for drinking and driving, all the way down to you were protesting for something that the current Trump regime doesn't like. Okay, so there's a lot of reporting that's kind of going on here. These stories are continuing to be updated. CNN is reporting here, and I will put this up on the screen right now, that Flores Ruiz has not yet entered a plea and is being detained, according to his federal court record. This would be a separate case from the alleged charge for Dugan. So, court documents are indicating that Flores Ruiz learned the ICE agents were there to arrest him, and he fled the building. Agents confronted him outside the courthouse, where he again ran away, but was soon apprehended from a short distance away. So, again, all this stuff is happening. All this stuff is happening very quickly. We're going to get more details about this, but people need to be absolutely clear that this is a test. This is a moment in history that people have looked at and seen as, like, okay, how far can we get away with this? I happened, just by circumstance, to be listening to yesterday's Democracy Now! Episode. Again, speaking on a Friday, so yesterday's episode was Thursday. And I was listening to Maria Ressa, who was a reporter for Rappler, like a news site. I'm not sure if it was around during this time, but she covered rather the rise of Rodrigo Duterte and the authoritarian attacks on the Constitution that were happening right there. And I want to play this clip because I think it's really relevant in this moment. And I wanted to say right now, like, this is the time where I've mentioned this in other contexts. I've mentioned this in other pieces that I've done. If you are not interested in going to a protest, if you haven't gone to a protest recently, if there's no protests around you and you're like, oh, maybe someone should organize one, maybe I should get some of my friends together, maybe I should start myself, this is the time. Because as Maria Ressa is going to mention here, if it's not now, every minute, every second, every day that we are not actively fighting against this, the fascism wins. We've talked about it on the show Power Report for years, even during the Biden administration, some of the things that Biden did, but definitely some of the things Trump did during his first administration. You can even go back for many other presidents, because that's how it goes. But fascism has existed in these United States for a very long time at a slow hum that very often doesn't rise to the kind of level we're seeing right now. But just in the first 100 days of the Donald Trump administration, you are seeing something that anyone outside the country would be blaring fire alarms for. You have historians on fascism that are deciding to leave the country because they see what's going on. And so with that, I want to play a little bit of this interview from Democracy Now! Because this is kind of how serious this is. If you have not gone to a protest, find one this weekend and go to one, because this is when the Trump administration needs to see, and people need to see, especially the right wing needs to see, that we are not going to stand up for this as people. Full stop, end of story. Here's some of this clip now.
Violence is real world violence. The reason why 72% of the world today is now under authoritarian rule is partly because our public information ecosystem is.
Earlier, she was talking about how 70% of the world is ruled by is under authoritarian rule because of our information ecosystems. And that's a whole other reason why you should check out this interview more broadly. It's on Democracy Now! By Maria Ressa, currently titled as Trump Attacks CBS. Maria Ressa warns he is following a Philippine model to crack down on the free press. Let's continue playing this now.
It's corrupted. Good morning.
I remember you being on the show here years ago when Duterte was really going after you, when he was the leader of the Philippines now, and we'll talk about this in a moment.
Yes.
He's in prison at The Hague. But when you walked out, you said, don't take this as just an example of, this sort of story of the Philippines. You said, this could be happening to you in just a few years. I see us as a warning for you. So talk about, Nermeen mentioned how many times they attempted to arrest you.
Yeah.
Talk about how you dealt with this and how you fought back. Because I think law firms are seeing, universities are seeing,
right.
All of these institutions, when they fight back, Trump blinks.
So first, I think the biggest lesson we learned is that you are at your most powerful at the beginning of the attacks. Every day you do not fight back, you lose just a little bit more of your rights. We normalize just a little bit more of this kind of pseudo-democracy, right?
I want to go right there because that's a main point. Every day we say, oh, this is okay. And I want to just address some comments here. Thank you all for commenting who are watching this live right now. Shout out to Mo, shout out to Nachikit, shout out to TMHC, shout out to Carrie Shaw for the super sticker. Thank you very much. Any sort of support helps. You can find out how to support with the ticker down below. I'll update the description a little bit later. But I did want to point out, shout out Discount Seth Rogen, shout out Soul Life. I did want to especially point out that TMHC says it's bad, but it's also very dumb. And I think it'll be a one-day news story. There's reason to believe this will be a one-day news story because it's happening on a Friday. That's when you dump news. The White House Correspondents' Dinner is happening. And so a lot of the reporters are, busy schmoozing and trying to get, leaks and stories from their other reporters and other people in Washington, especially during this administration, because in a very individualistic, self-centered way, they can advance their own journalistic careers. Totally, right? Like, it is designed to be a one-day news story. But the reason I saw this and I was like, oh my God, I have to do something about this, I have to create something about this, is because the ramifications for this go much beyond this other day. And like Maria Ressa is saying, and she has experience from the Philippines and Rodrigo Duterte and that regime that we saw, and that ended with international criminal court proceedings, right? It's important, like she just said, now like reverse back and play it again. You have to act before it gets worse, because the first time they test the waters, every single moment that they realize that they can test those waters and bad things don't happen, they're just going to keep going and keep moving. It's that old give an inch, take a mile sort of reprieve. So thank you for the comment. I genuinely appreciate it, because this is, an important note, because there could totally be ways where this gets ignored, but this is extremely important, and I feel that way 10 toes down. And so I hope y'all will trust me as people who are subscribed to this channel, Dan from the internet, who are liking this video on YouTube, watching on the other platforms as well, Twitch, whatever. Yes, please take this seriously. All right, I'm going to continue playing this, and also please internalize this piece. I'm going to play the captions here as well so y'all can see.
Is that you are at your most powerful at the beginning of the attacks. Every day you do not fight back, you lose just a little bit more of your rights. We normalize just a little bit more of this kind of pseudo-democracy, right? We need to, I think the first is that, what are the steps, right? Social media was used to attack us. And it's like fertilizer. Saying you're the enemy of the press then lets people believe that's astroturfing. For me, hashtag arrest Maria Ressa was trended by pro-government, by pro-Duterte information operations 2 years before I was actually arrested. And that sets the stage. It's like fertilizer. So social media then media capture, and Robert talked about the chilling effect. Forget the chilling, it's Siberia. And business interest, I talked about the 3 C's: corrupt, coerce, co-opt. For every single institution that is broken down: media, academe, NGO capture, state capture. And each step of the way as you go down, rule of law breaks down and you lose. It's death by 1,000 cuts of your rights. So in the Philippines, it was a rallying cry for us, because I'm a traditional journalist in the old sense of the word, right? And I didn't want to be an activist, but when it's a battle for facts, journalism is activism. So in our case, I said, we hold the line. This is the line where the Constitution gives us our rights. The Philippines, like the United States, has 3 branches, co-equal branches of government, and the United States is following the Philippines. What happened under Duterte? A very powerful executive, a co-opted legislature, and it took Duterte 6 months to crush the checks and balances of the Philippines, to get rid of institutional checks on his power. The judiciary, what happens with the judiciary is, not only, you talked about the 10 arrest warrants I have, 8 years later, we've won 8 of the 10 cases, but I still have to ask for the Philippines, for approval to travel from the Philippine Supreme Court. What rights you lose today, you will not get back, right? This is part of the reason why, if you value.
And for my left friends out there, you all think, you all have criticisms of the Democrats and the Democratic Party, but if you see liberals, if you see moderates in the streets this weekend, I'm gonna need you to tap the brakes on that and lock arms on this one thing and start to build from there, okay? Because you see how quickly Republicans are willing to, at best, be complicit and at worst be explicit in how much they want to take away basic American rights, democratic values that we've had since the Renaissance period, right? Do y'all really trust liberals, if they even do get a chance to get elected, to bring those rights back without some pressure coming from you all? Because I don't. And I believe, in fact, I'm going to join y'all out in the streets this weekend, all right? Because this is crucial. This is important. We're coming up on a May Day next weekend as well. Universal Day of Worker Solidarity. It's going to be in the middle of the week, of course. In a just world, we would all stop working, and boss and CEO and worker and intern would be in lockstep side by side, because it's this much of a humanitarian issue. But this is where it is. I'll continue playing this here.
Talked about the 10 arrest warrants I have. 8 years later, we've won 8 of the 10 cases, but I still have to ask for the Philippines, for approval to travel from the Philippine Supreme Court. What rights you lose today, you will not get back.
Remember that.
Right? This is that part of the reason why, if you value your rights, you stand up for them, you hold the line. Because silence is complicity. Silence gives approval for it. And we create a new normal. Even reporting has to slightly change. You have to call a lie a lie. You have to put the context to it.
That part.
Anyway, sorry, I can talk about this forever. I feel like I have PTSD and deja vu all combined. It's shocking America is where it is today. But
it is shocking America where it is where it is today. So, folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Discount Seth Rogen says on Twitch, last moment, when I worked for congressional campaigns in 2020, MSNBC boomers logged more call time than every single intern. I'll repeat that again. MSNBC boomers logged more call time than every single intern. We all, we all bring what we can to these movements, to these moments, right? It just is what it is. That's how things tend to happen. And, folks who are, our friends, the MSNBC liberals, so to speak, if they have the time to be retired because they worked all their careers, if they have the time to watch TV, then they might realize they have the time to make phone calls to senators and constituent or Congress people or state house people or whatever, or, you know, start to do the organizing work that maybe you can organize on a high level as someone who's younger and can do things about spreadsheets and, you know, social media and technology and those sorts of things, right? Like, everyone brings something different to the movement. Just like if you're doing a cookout, or you're doing a little picnic, even the person who brings the disposable plates and cups, right? Like, they're doing something. They're adding something to the movement. So you all have something to add to the movement, right? Yeah, Pinkerbell saying what happened. Hopefully it's not the stream going out, but yeah, like, this is for a different episode or different segment, but you got to look into what happened in the Duterte regime in the Philippines. It echoes what happened what is happening right now with the Bukele regime in El Salvador. It echoes what is happening with the Trump regime in the United States of America. And so we have to be very cautious for this. Yes, please click the like button. Please subscribe to the videos that might be showing up around my screen right now. I'm going to be ending the stream pretty much right now, but thank you all for listening and watching. And please heed my words. Do something this weekend. Use your energy, use your power while you have it. We always end this show and end PowerPoint streams by saying the power is always within you, but I got to be honest, we are getting close to losing it. And so use it before you lose it type shit. Like, that's the kind of thing we're on. So thank you very much for listening and watching. There's a PowerPoint episode yesterday that you can check out in the replays for now. Please become a Syndicate 23 member. And next week there will be a PowerPoint without me, but with some special guests. So please stay tuned for that. Please make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're listening or watching to. And until next time, the power is always within you, but not always if you don't fight for it.